Hello, and welcome to the Wade Borth podcast. This is Wade Borth, your wealth strategist, and today we're going to talk about money and water. Money and water, what do they have in common? How are they alike? So the best example I can give about how money and water are alike is an example I used and I wrote about on my website, sagewealthstrategy.com. And it's an example I used when my son and I were out for a walk in the springtime in North Dakota. It was during the spring when the ditches were full of water. And as we were walking down the street, my son, I believe he was 11 at the time, asked me, he says, "Dad, what do you do for a living?" And so taking the opportunity to explain what I did for a living, I said, well, let's take a look. I said, if we take a look at the ditch, what do you see in the ditch? He said, well, I see water flowing. I see water running. I said, okay, that's great. I said, well, now I want you to look at the retention pond on the backside of our property where the city had built a retention pond. I said, what do you see there? He says, well, I see the water that's being held in that retention pond. And I said, well, that's exactly right. Here's the point where I wanted to get across from how money and water are very similar. I said, take a look at that retention pond. I said, what do you see when summer comes? When the heat of summer comes and August comes, what do you see out there? He says, well, it's going to start by turning green, getting stinky, and then eventually he says it will fade away. I said, well, that's exactly right. I said, there's three things working against that retention, the water in that retention pond. One is it's going to be soaking into the ground. And that's very similar to, maybe what we consider taxes. It's going to be pulling away from it, or maybe fees would be pulling away from it on a regular basis. Part of it's going to be flowing through the outflow that the city built in. Once the water gets too high, it has a place for it to flow out so it doesn't flood the road. That's kind of like taxes. And the other one is evaporation. When it turns, kind of that green color, it gets that haze over the top of it and starts evaporating, that's like inflation. So the things that kill our money are those three wealth destroyers: taxes, fees, and inflation. Then I had to redirect his attention back over to the ditch. And I said, so what do you see out in that ditch? And he said, well, I remember a time when I used to float my boats down that ditch through the culverts. Now we live not in the city where you have curb and gutter, but our water actually flows through a ditch out in front of our house. And I said, yes, that's exactly right. Water flows down through that ditch. I said, so you think about it, how does that differ than the water that's sitting out back behind our house in that retention pond? He said, well, it's a lot cleaner and a lot fresher. And he says, probably not going to soak into the ground as much. I said, well, that's true. I said, so with that, which one has more power? Which one has the greater ability to change things? And he said, well, definitely the water that's running. He says, if you think about it, it's, we talked about how the Grand Canyon was made and how rivers can cut a ditch, or in certain circumstances, you put them behind a dam and that flowing water turns a turbine to create electricity. Flowing water, just like flowing money, is how wealth is created. And flowing water is where all the power comes from water, just like flowing money. And what we talk about flowing money is how do we create wealth? Our money, just like water, has to flow or it becomes stagnant, it evaporates, soaks in the ground. And so one of the things that I try to explain to them, what I do is I said, I help people, store their money in a safe, secure location that's safe from the ravages of taxes, inflation, and fees, and then at the same time trying to figure out a way that we can have that money flowing to grow our wealth. If we're using it to buy a business, if we're buying land or buying farm ground or investing back in our own business, that money needs to flow because those operations that are growing true wealth need cash to make them happen. So the question is, where are we going to get that cash? Now, most people think that you save money. Well, if you save money and you put it, and I think it was Robert Kiyosaki said that savers are losers. Because if you save money and you don't put it to work for you, what's going to happen? Again, it goes back to that same example of that retention pond. There could be fees that are going to be pulled from it. The taxes on anything you might earn are going to be pulled from it. And eventually, inflation is going to be pulled from it. So again, don't take my word for it. Let's take a look at what institutions do. Let's take a look at what people of wealth do with their money. and emulate those things that are positive with those people that have dollars, and say, they'll be able to grow wealth through the flow of money. A great example is, does a bank take your dollar and everybody else's dollar and store it in their vault and hoard it and hold on to it? Well, absolutely not. What do? They flow. They have it flow out to other people so they can borrow money to build a building or to start a business or whatever the case might be. So they understand that flow of money is the one way to grow wealth, and they're very good at it, because they'll take that money, and again, through the Federal Reserve System, which we can have a lot of discussion about, they're able to take that same $1 and lend it out, 8 or 9 times, to borrow that out to other businesses and other people, which is the true flow of money. I mean, that's like opening up the floodgates on the Hoover Dam, right? Being able to have that kind of flow out of your money, where you and I cannot do that. That's Bernie Madoff territory. We'd be sitting in jail. But the point is that they understand that by putting their money to work and having your money flow, again, when we talk about flow, it's like putting it to work for you. So it's not just sitting there, having it do 2 jobs at once. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to hold on to those dollars in a safe, secure location that's free from taxes, free from fees, and then we can take it and have it flow out and have it fight inflation. So again, all those strategies are an outcropping of the Sage Wealth strategy, which is the infinite banking concept. Again, go to our website, sagewealthstrategy.com, send me an email at wade@sagewealthstrategy.com, and we can have a discussion about how you can make your money flow and how you can store your money in a proper place until you're ready to have it flow out and turn your turbines of your economy, of your personal economy. And again, don't have it sit there and stagnate and evaporate away. Have it go to work for you. Have it working as hard as it possibly can for you, so it can grow your wealth, not somebody else's wealth.